People say it's harmful to tell others that a traumatic experience of theirs is part of God's plan. So, how true is that?
Mm, Stepping on toes.
Yeah.
So when I hear the question, my mind is immediately split into a few different directions.
Hmm.
And again, I want to be careful, but here's what my gut says, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Um, Part of me wants to talk about almost like the theology behind suffering and pain. I'm not going to go that direction. I really want to focus on why would that be problematic, right? What might that person who's suffering or who's been through a traumatic experience not receive that really well?
Hmm.
Um, and here's where I'll go with that. First thing, when someone is suffering, when they're going through something traumatic in any way, they're not in a place where they can think through things the same way that they would if they weren't going through those experiences, right?
Hmm.
We tend to not be our best, thoughtful, cognitive selves when we are struggling and when we're in the pits.
Hmm.
Right? So if I'm someone who's seeking to support, I think that's the first thing I need to keep in mind is this person is suffering, and that changes how I approach them. And
Hmm.
it also lets me know that I need to be gentle and careful in what I'm saying. So the second piece, if I am saying your suffering or this experience is part of God's plan, right? I hear that, and there's a part of me that says, yeah, that would be helpful, right? Because it seems like the motivation behind that is this feels out of control. We don't know
Hmm.
why this happened, but we can rest in the idea that God is ultimately in control and he's
Hmm.
going to take this and do something wonderful with it, or it's going to build these character qualities, right? But potential problems, right? Which is what
Hmm.
we're going to focus on in this. If it can also, you don't know how it's going to be received, right? Based on that person's experience. So, one of the first images that comes to mind, things that I've heard from clients and people who are suffering, is when they hear your suffering or your experience part of God's plan, they can think, right? Oh, so you mean when I was suffering, when I was going through this really painful experience, and I was begging God to come save me,
Hmm.
get me out of it, to be there with me. You're saying he was there and he was saying, no,
Hmm.
right? You're just in it and I'm not going to rescue you. And as I say that, if there's a part of you that's saying that doesn't fit with how we view God, that doesn't sound like the God who draws near to the brokenhearted,
Hmm.
right? Who would send him like from God to humanity, encounter suffering himself, right? Take all of that on him, weep when his friend dies, right? If that doesn't fit with that, you're absolutely right, right?
Hmm.
But I would say that's one of the primary barriers is you don't know how it's going to be received.
Hmm.
And so anytime you're saying something like that, I think the sentiment, the motivation behind it can be so pure and so helpful, but it's too simple.
Hmm.
It's simplistic to say this is part of God's plan because there are a lot of different factors here and you don't know exactly where this other person is at.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my gut.